Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Wayfinder, Keeping Your Drivers on Course. We're going to be starting officially in about a minute. Want to give people some time to still log in, but we're so glad you're here. We got a sunny day here in upstate New York, and hopefully your days are sunny as well. See you soon. All right, let's get this party started. So welcome again. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations here at Transfinder. And again, we are really glad you're here. I can tell you right now that our CEO, Antonio Civitella, has been chomping at the bit to share about Wayfinder and all that it has to do and its capabilities. Joining Tony today is going to be Zach Moren. He's Transfinder's sales engineer, and they're going to give you a quick overview of Wayfinder and all of its, some of its capabilities. And then we're going to bring in a special guest. His name is Rick Walterscheid. He's from Goose Creek Consolidated School District in Texas. Rick's using Wayfinder, so he's going to be able to give a firsthand experience what he's experienced using our Wayfinder drivers app. And then we'll come back to Tony and Zach to get really into the nitty-gritty of the product. But first, let me just turn it over to Tony Civitella, our CEO, and Zach Moren, our sales engineer. Tony, Zach.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Zach, how are you doing? Of course, we are not next to each other. We normally do things and we could like single each other like, hey, what are you doing? I'm over here. So Zach is in Austin, Texas. I'm here in upstate New York. So we're just sharing the difference in weather. Of course, there's about at least 20, maybe 30-degree difference, especially in the evening. So we're having some fun. So welcome, everybody. We're excited today to talk to you about Wayfinder. Really, there's a lot of things here. And of course, I'll be here on the side. Zach's really going to go through the presentations, and of course, we want to be able to take a lot of your questions and your comments. So please give it to us. We always want to hear from you guys, and of course, there'll be a moment that we'll hear from Rick too. So Zach, how you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, thanks so much. Real privilege to get to be here, get to present with you, Tony. So, like Tony mentioned, what we're really here to talk about today is our in-vehicle driver application, right? Wayfinder. Wayfinder, though, is a part of our full solution, our Transfinder all-in-one platform. And really important to mention that because we're going to be bringing up how Wayfinder ties into our entire solution lineup. So I'll be talking about that quite a bit as we go. But our real focus, again, is the Wayfinder application. This is an application for drivers to be able to really do a lot. Let's take a look at what we're going to cover today before I hand things over to Rick here. So what we want to talk about with Wayfinder is a few considerations here. So some of the pre-navigation tools we offer. So we're talking about things like substituting resources, making changes to routes, things like that before you hit the road. Some of the unique turn-by-turn navigation features we have, and this is going to be things like running simulations. This is going to be the voice-over navigation we offer, the rerouting intelligently that we let you do with it. And of course, we want to take a look at things like tracking attendance, whether that's manually or whether you're using RFID cards. So that's the big picture that we're going to look at. But before we do that, again, we want to give Rick a chance to talk a little bit about his experience using it. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks so much, Zach. Thank you. So before I forget, I want to make sure everybody realizes we do want to hear your questions. So Tony and Zach may be answering your questions in real time, or we have set aside some time at the very end of the webinar as well to address any questions you have. So you may have those answers embedded right in the midst of their presentation, but at the end we also will have time. Please use the chat button, not the Q&A. We'd prefer if you use the chat button, and we'll see your questions. We'll make sure we'll get right to them. So we'll return back to you guys in a moment, but first I want to turn it over to Rick Walterscheid. Rick is in Texas, Goose Creek. He has a long relationship with Tony going back 2 decades. Hard to believe that. So I want to tell you, Rick, Tony may jump in our conversation. So I just want to warn you right now. Tony's very excited about all that we're going to be covering today. So Rick, I just want to hear a little bit, first of all, of what it was that motivated you to get Wayfinder, and what some of your goals were when you obtained this solution.
You know, going back 20 years, I can think of numerous conversations that we've had in the industry about how do we get to where we are today. The technology, GPS has been around for a long time, right? But the secret in the sauce, and then what do you do with the secret in the sauce? And really, for me, the secret in the sauce was being able to, and really the hindrance from me personally desiring to move forward in the past has been, we all experience as transportation directors a situation where we have a new driver or we have an experienced driver going into areas that they don't drive every day. You know, we look for that consistency, that timage of the bus is going to show up every day at the right time. And then overall safety. So you give a driver a route sheet, and we all know what it looks like. They're driving down the road and looking in one hand and driving down the other. We see it, we experience it, and when you when that occurs, it's not the safest environment. So we're all looking for tools, and that's part of our job as directors, transportation providers. We look for tools to make things both safer, easier, more consistent, and then best practice. So there's no one in the world that would say best practice in the world is to sit out there driving a bus in a route in an area, picking up students that you don't know in an area that you don't know with a piece of paper guiding you to give you left and rights. So what really probably the secret sauce that I was looking for, and what I found is that through our testing is that it takes our routes from Transfinder, which we really study that. We're students of the industry when it comes to routes and knowing our area. So while Transfinder may not know that we can't take a left on a certain street, or that every afternoon that bus gets backed up at this certain angle, or that at this particular home we need to pick up on this side of the road versus the other side of the road, it enables us to give them this route instead of relying on solely the GPS to tell us where the driver's gone. And so it's active. If we make a change today, it's going to be effective today. It goes into their routes today. If it's adding a new student, it goes in effect from our routes, not from a third party. It is a tool that we as a department, and that's what I like about Transfinder tools. There's one for everything you need. And so when you bring your department to a whole, over the last 20 years, I've done this multiple times, you bring your whole department up by providing them with tools. And if they all know how to tools, you simply add another tool on top of that, and they're already used to that platform, that look, that feel. So this was just another suite that added to the toolbox that we have, but it puts it in the hands of the drivers. So now I've got drivers using the same tools rather than other tools. Dispatchers using the same tools instead of a third-party tool or an add-on tool from a different company. And really, that was the big one. And then the personal relationship. You talk about Tony and I going back 20 years. It's not Tony and I going back together 20 years. It's my department building that relationship, whether it be Bob, or whether it at the front desk, or whether it's any number of technicians that we talk to help problem solve. They know our problems. They know our solutions. It's building that reputation and building that relationship that really spurred us on into moving in this direction. And finally, the technology is where it needs to be for us to fully embrace it at every level. And then the communication piece with our parents, because we already use a Transfinder product to communicate where the stop locations are. So it's just one more tool that we've embraced our whole community in. And really, that's what it was about for us.
You know, that slide that Zach had in the very beginning that has plus right in the center, it talks about, you know, everything else builds off of that core technology. You know, you said something, thank you. You said something when we talked recently, Rick, about this Wayfinder specifically being the thing that the industry has been clamoring for some time. Tell me, why is that?
Well, I mean, it goes back to, again, that turn-by-turn stop. That turn-by-turn, it doesn't rely on a handheld device to give you that. It's brought in from the routing software. If a router takes the time to build the routes and be able to implement those routes and have the driver drive that route. Now, that's one piece of it, but something that is even more difficult is when those drivers make those changes, because we all have to recognize the fact that someone sitting behind a desk may not know that route as well as the person that's behind the wheel. Let's just face it, as a former bus driver and a current supervisor, I recognize the fact that my drivers know more about the area that they serve. And so to be able to quickly, and I mean quickly, grab that route through this tool and update our route to what the drivers are actually seeing out on the road is monumental. Additionally, knowing that they're not going off of a piece of paper anymore, that it actually speaks to them in the vehicle. And there's other softwares that do this, but the accuracy level, I mean, within feet is what we're experiencing as far as the stop. And it could be halfway between two corners and it's there. The telematics on it really has, frankly shocked me. That was the least of my expectations. But it's been the greatest surprise in knowing that, when they get out there, it's going to be done right. And oh, by the way, it gives me the feedback that I need if they're not doing it the way that we've assigned them to. So then it's just a simple conversation of, hey, I know you took a left when you should have taken a right. Why did you take a left? Well, I find that left right there, or that right there, there's not enough room at that tight corner to do it. So I come in from the other direction. Oh, that's a great point. We pull it in, we evaluate it, and we immediately make that stop change. And when you're updating 800 plus runs on a regular basis at the beginning of the year to make sure everybody's getting on time where they need to go, what an awesome tool. It doesn't take 2 weeks to get your buses on time. It doesn't take you 2 weeks to get the routes updated. And it doesn't take you 2 weeks to get the information back out to the parents. All they got to do is subscribe, hit a button. We send out an email or a text, an email push notification through the system, through the Wayfinder app to the parents and say, hey, your route's been updated. We're coming 10 minutes earlier tomorrow. Or we're having to offload your students onto a new route starting on Tuesday because of overcrowding. It's having those tools at your fingertips in the same platform so that you don't have to re-educate your entire staff. So now you've also built in backup behind you so that whenever you have a new router come in, but they've come in from a driver position, or you want to bring in a new driver into the routing office, or you bring in one of your routers into the supervisors, or it provides that longevity of growth so that they're familiar with this product. And that's what I would say is this is a great product to build a program around. And with this tool, even if you're going from paper routes, which is what I started at 20 years ago, everybody had a piece of paper and we had a map and we just all connected the dots. Now you send them out in a bus and you say, okay, you know where Johnny lives, and that dog stands on the corner and the mailbox that's missing half of the front of it and gets reined in every time. That's where that stop needs to be. I got you. Open your door and we're ready to rock and roll.
That's right. Hey, Rick, I want to add something. Bring back, Zach, can you go back that one? That's the previous slide again. I tell you, I have a story that I want to share with a lot of people here that's on. And I don't know if you even remember this, Rick. This is probably about 15 years ago. We were at Kerrville, Texas. Apparently that's considered the hill country, which you want to come to hill country, come to our area. I could show you some hills. But I remember there was a, it's when I didn't realize
Syntax conference. Syntax.
That's right. That's right. Central Texas. That's right. And it was, I didn't realize how phenomenal golfer you are. I never expected you to be like that. And so we had a golf outing. It was a lot of people. And of course we would chat back and forth. I remember that evening we're all playing pool and it's again, I've tried to bring my wife to some of these events. She's like, oh, it's going to be great. Like, well, I'm going to be working. And it was nonstop work and the feedback back and forth. And I remember a bunch of us were sitting, and I don't know if a lot of people even know here, even in the office, I was sitting by the pool. There's a beautiful pool on the lounge chair. And I feel like it's around 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, literally the sun was coming out. I'm like, oh my God, we have a trade show coming up in a few more hours. I didn't get any sleep. Like, so what Rick was telling, like, Tony, I've got so many different products. Why couldn't you guys come up with something that you guys have? I'm like, I know we don't have it. Well, our focus is routing. Like, man, you should be doing a GPS. You should be. He was talking about why not have like this golden route that's created from GPS. Like, oh, I know, I hear you, but man, I gotta go to sleep because I have a trade show. That's why we came here. Like, but he was just going on and on. Of course, it was getting cold. We literally went to get some blankets because I was freezing. I mean, the crickets were out and all that stuff. It's like, oh my God. But I remember you just kept saying, man, so it's this whole all-in-one platform that you talked about like 15 years ago at Centex. And I tell you, man, and it took us a long time. And I'm so excited that everyone knows that we didn't just say, 2 days ago, let's have an all-in-one solution. Now, this is a decade or so of planning and just getting here. So I know we have a lot to cover, guys, so I don't want to take too much time, but I just feel like there is a reason why we talk about this all-in-one. Means, there's a lot of products out there and they're all very good, but we want to make sure that it's a communication back and forth. Why do that? Why not just have a solution that has, or a company that has all these solutions that don't have to go send files back and forth? It's you, as soon as you make a change, it's immediate on his tablet. So that's a cool thing. So guys, I think I want to, let's continue, Zach.
All right. Well, Rick, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Tony and Zach. And again, if anybody has any questions in the midst of our conversation here, we'll address it as we get to it. So thanks again. Thanks, Rick.
I'm sure we'll bring Rick back in here for some stuff.
Sure will. We touched on a lot of really important things I want to cover today too, which obviously that all-in-one platform, why it's so important to us, because it's so important to those end users that info's accurate, it's up to date, that you've got one place that you're keeping track of it all. So let me kind of jump into things a little bit. Again, like I mentioned, we're here to talk about Wayfinder as part of our all-in-one solution, but really what it offers for drivers and a lot of the other things Rick mentioned here, right? That safety, that consistency, that accuracy. So I'm gonna jump into it. Again, first thing I want to talk about is some of the pre-navigation things that we're giving you, right? Empowering drivers to be able to make changes and keep things up to date. And that starts with our resource substitution. When I'm talking about substituting resources, I'm talking about drivers and vehicles, making sure that information is accurate and up to date. The reason we wanted to empower drivers to be able to control this and update this from our Wayfinder app is because changes happen really quickly. Sometimes our transportation can't keep track of it. If you have a vehicle that's down out in the field, the driver is going to have to take a different bus that day. They can't stay on top of all those things. So having the driver be able to do it right from the Wayfinder app, what they do is when they log into the application, they're going to see the trips they have assigned for that day. They're going to see the resources, the vehicles, the times, all that info. And if they need to, they can make any changes here. So I'll point out in the top right corner, you get a plus sign. So if I come in, I'm a driver, I know I'm driving Route 100. If I need to do a tier 2 and I need to jump on Route 105 after that, I can go ahead and tap that plus sign and I can add an additional route to myself for the day. Then same thing with vehicles, right? We've got vehicles assigned here. If I need to make that change, that scenario where the bus is blown out or the tire is blown out and I'm jumping on bus 140 instead of bus 120, I can go ahead and tap any of my trips here and make that change. And again, this is so important because of that all-in-one solution, because it's not just the driver that needs this info. Districts are going to be looking for this information, transportation's looking for it, and your parents might be looking for it too. If you've got a parent application, they're expecting to see or get alerted when the bus is coming, they need to know what bus is going to be coming to pick them up that day.
So Zach, let me add to this here. This is an important screen here because what's happening here, this is today's schedule for the driver. So the driver actually has login, and I got some questions here about security features, of course. And yeah, you could set drivers as users and they have specific trips. So when they log in to Wayfinder, it shows that's their schedule. But some of our larger clients that have hundreds of drivers and obviously hundreds of vehicles, you obviously could do these substitution in the morning because we all know, like what Rick said, that he wants to know what it did. Well, if you don't substitute the vehicle, if bus 11 is planned, but you pull bus 12 instead, and but then Rick wants to do a plan versus actual, guess what? If someone did not substitute that, well, he's going to see bus 11 stay at the bus garage. So, obviously a lot of work on that. So you offload some of that work to your drivers, let them do the substitution. Again, you can empower them, and that makes a big difference. And again, this is where how these systems work. So I feel like, when Rick was talking about how, he wants to do plan versus actual, if you don't do the substitution, it doesn't work. Things don't make sense. So very important. I feel like I wanted to add that, of course.
That's huge. Yeah. One last screen that I wanted to show off here. What's that look like if I need to substitute a vehicle? We need to know if a vehicle is already assigned to a trip, already out on the road. Obviously, I want to know if there's a conflict there. So those substitutions are kept in order. So once you've got your resources assigned, we've got the pieces in place, it's time to actually take a look at the trips themselves, right? So I'm a driver. I know I'm driving Route 100. I need to take a look at that and do some of the pre-navigation setup too. Now, none of this is required. Maybe your pieces are in place and you're not expecting this out of drivers, but it's really important to us that those tools are there for if you want to empower your driver to update the resources or manage their trips. And so when I'm talking about managing my trips with the pre-navigation here, talk about making any trips changes to the trip before they head out. And that's things like adding or skipping a stop here. If they need to change the sequence of the stops or the order of it there, changing stop times or updating student assignments. And a big reason why this is so important is once they hit the road, they're actually getting those turn-by-turn navigation. It's important that it's accurate and up to date, right? So let's take a look. Driver, when they log into a trip, they're going to get this kind of side-by-side screen. They're going to have their stops on the left-hand side and their map on the right-hand side.
Zach,
Tony,
I want to add something here because there's another question that came about student. Obviously, you could see this device has the student, and it will see the student information. Very minimal information. Typically, we only want, if you do have pictures, a picture will show up, and I think Zach will show that in the next couple of screens. But everyone's worried about security. We all are, and we should be worried. I mean, the current events here with the cyber attacks and so forth. So yeah, we do a lot of things. We encrypt things, and we also want minimal information that comes on this device. And remember, it's live, so therefore it's as soon as you lose a connection, it's gone. When you're done, there's nothing stored on this device. So I just want to let you know, we go really, we are obvious. We know that security is important, and we also know what's going on in current events. So I think I want to make sure that I bring this up because it is not on your network. It's on a device. It's a portable device like this. I'm driving around with this thing. It's like, oh, well, how are you securing this data? So I think it's appropriate. I just want to just bring it out right there. It's thinking, man, what's going on? I mean, and also we got to keep in mind, if big organization could get attacked, it means anyone could get attacked. I always said that. I always talked about how do you keep the honest people, why you lock your door. You lock your door to keep the honest people out. And that's the fact, but we are working very hard to make sure everything's encrypted, and we want to just keep going on and on this. That's why we do promote, we promote bring your own device, but guess what? Sometimes if you bring some devices, we're not sure how good those devices are. So, if you're bring us to the table, if you're going to look at devices and maybe you want to get some other devices that maybe you want to ask us first, because maybe some of those things are not so secure. So I just want to bring that up before you get started here, Zach.
Yeah, no, it's a really good concern. All right, so we are talking about being able to keep your trips up to date, right? Pre-navigation screen, you jump in, you get a lot of information right at a snapshot. What's the trip going to look like? What's my stop info? But again, this is where we empower them to make those changes. So right from the screen, drivers are able to tap any of their stops here, and you can see we can update information like the stop time. If I need to skip a stop, we've got add stop up there in the top right-hand corner. And really, really intuitive interface. You can click and drag these stops around if you need to resequence it. Again, so important because you want to make sure once they hit the road, if there are changes happening to a trip like that, you can see in the screen here how it's redoing those driving directions, right? It's updating that information. And this is where it ties back into that all-in-one platform we keep talking about so much. It's because when we reroute a trip, we want to make sure that it's using your local knowledge. Rick talked about this too, but if you know there's streets a bus can't drive down, well, it doesn't make sense to reroute us down that street, right? If you know there's intersections we can't turn into, you got to have that information built into your directions here as well. Tony,
Well,
anything else on that?
Yeah, I want to say I'm getting some response here that the chat's not working. So some people are using the question and answers. Guys, whatever it's working, we'll go through the chat. If it works better in question and answers, don't worry about it. We'll make sure. So don't let that to stop you. So you have some questions and the chat's not working and you want to use Q&A section. Use a Q&A section. So don't worry about that. I think I'm analyzing these questions. So as you're talking, I'll interject some stuff in there. But also, if there's an appropriate question I want to answer, I'll make sure I'll interrupt you and we'll get there. So don't freak out about that. Don't panic if chat's not working for you, but Q&A is working. Use that instead, or an email, or I wish I could hear you guys, but we'll figure that out. All right. So just want to bring that up.
I'll count on you to interrupt me when we get those good questions, Tony.
That's
one
right.
last thing I wanted to talk about before I leave pre-navigation is, again, I'm talking about how drivers can make changes to these trips. But again, we know drivers aren't routers. If I'm making a trip as a driver before I take off, that's not impacting this trip. It's really just impacting this day's information, right? So tomorrow's trip, the next day's, it's going to be set with whatever you set in your routing software. So that's really key to remember. Drivers need the ability to update this so that when they hit the road, they're going to have accurate info, but they're not changing your routes on the fly here or anything like that. But you do want that data, because if a driver is skipping a stop every single day of the week, maybe your transportation department needs to take a look at that. Maybe they need to update those routes and think about, why are we skipping stop 5 every day, right?
That's right. And remember, this is where Rick talked about how the drivers do know a lot about these routes. They know a lot about about why Mrs. Jones has Billy picked up at a certain place. They know about this stuff, and they know a lot of time your drivers, they know how to really de-escalate some issues, and they're doing it without even knowing about it. And that's what we expect. These are professionals. They take care of things. They solve problems before they become real problem, before they even hit your desk. So we know that. So how do we empower drivers to do this? Zach, I think a lot of people are going to start saying, well, what's going to happen? I mean, my driver's going to be able to do whatever they want. What did I just buy this product for? Remember, you control this stuff. You manage this stuff. You get to pick what you want. And that if something happens that you didn't like, you still could do something about it. You have that information. So I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, you guys develop a product that could do it. Remember, one of the questions about the map. No, it's the same map. So there's no like map that you have in your routing system versus Wayfinder. It's exact same map. So if you added a street, it's going to show up on the navigation. That's the whole all-in-one. Means if anything you do in routing, it's going to show up here. We're not using Google Maps or another third-party maps. It's an exact same map. So if you're missing a road in routing, well, guess what? It's going to be missing in Wayfinder too. So I know there's going to be a couple things. And notice there's there's a grade, the school, and the student name and a picture. That's all we keep. That's all we have. So
Hey, Tony,
go ahead. Yes,
Tony,
Rick.
One of the things that you mentioned, I saw a question come across, is can you update your maps using technology? And I would say we're doing that. We're using cosmetic layers and bringing it in to redraw our schools. Because we all know you go in and do the best job you can, but this actually makes it so much more accurate. So we just went through and redid all of our campus driveways. And so, and we did that off of the GPS. Driver driving in.
Yeah, that's right.
So we actually created a road that is navigatable within Wayfinder, within Transfinder, to make sure that our drivers are going to the right side of the school. How many times you have a driver go to the wrong side of the school for a field trip?
That's right.
And so we can actually put those coordinates in Wayfinder and mimic exactly what the parking lot looks like and create a bus stop zone from the information we're getting from the GPS unit, and it's down to the foot. And so
that's right. That's cool.
A fast growing district and they're adding all these subdivisions and you can't seem to get the routes updated fast enough. We send a bus in that area and say, drive it, and we're going to add the road names, and it's going to be accurate. So a lot of times our roads are better than what the county gives us to update them with. And so that's a huge secret sauce, especially if you live in a high growth area like Austin or east and west Dallas and Houston, or anywhere in the United States, I guess, for that matter.
Awesome. Let's continue, Zach. I'll keep monitoring there's some other questions, but let's get going. I know we have a lot of material we want to cover, and so I'll bring up some questions as they make sense. Okay.
I think those real world cases really help, and we're definitely gonna harp on our maps a little bit more. But all that planning is obviously important. Eventually, though, your drivers have to hit the road. I want to take a look at the turn-by-turn navigation and some of the things that make our software unique. We know there's a lot of ways to navigate out on the road, but something that makes it unique to districts as far as that accuracy, that safety. So we're going to talk through some features here like simulation, the voice navigation, rerouting, and then obviously tracking that student attendance info. All right, so when you're ready to route, you've got your navigation screen here. Obviously, you got directions turn by turn. You've got a map. I'll point out here in my map, you can see the driver's not at the starting location, right? This might be pretty common. Maybe a driver starting at their home or another location, not what you had planned. You can see how the application's automatically routing them there, right? It's building in those turn by turns where they're missing and being able to update that info. Navigate's big blue button, easy to find, but before you jump into navigation, one feature I want to point out, which is in the top right there, that's that simulate feature. What this is giving you the ability to do is actually simulate the route before you get on the road to do it, right? So we think of this as you have a substitute driver that's going to run a route they've never run before. Maybe the day before they want to run through a simulation, take a look at what streets they're heading down, what turns to look out for, where the stop locations are before they actually head out. This is something they can log in, run the simulation from at home, in the office, whatever the case is. Obviously, we think of it as, before a pilot flies a plane, they're going to run some simulations. Shouldn't be any different for a driver out here on the road.
And Zach, really the whole simulation part is that we do see, we all recognize there's a massive driver shortage out there across the board. Even had a UPS guy come by this morning at my house, picked up some stuff because I don't know about you guys, when I get things at the house, there's a huge percentage of items are damaged, so they have to come back and pick it up. So I was having a chat with him saying even UPS is having a massive driver shortage. You guys know that, obviously, school bus drivers. So what's the value of simulations? Because if you allow your drivers to actually install this on their own device and you let them know, hey, tomorrow morning I need you to come in and drive that bus, well, they could just get a sense of what that vehicle's, what that route's all about, which kid's going to be picking up, and they could actually literally simulate turn by turn, stop by stop, everything right on their device before they get to work. So we think that's a massive feature that when we say simulate sounds cool, but there's a real use case on that. So, all right.
Absolutely. So I want to take a look when drivers are actually out on the road. I want to call out really, really intuitive, simple interface is what we want here. Our goal really is for drivers to not have to interact with this device any more than they need to. We actually have a feature built in to be able to drive this in a totally dark mode where the screen goes dark while they're driving. You're just getting the voice over navigation, right? Maybe you just need to know left here, right there, if that's what you're looking for your drivers. But if not, our display is going to be showing you exactly the planned route, right? So we see that in blue. That's what your router's set up as. Here's the route that we have planned for you. You see information like the time and distance to your next stop. And you can even keep track of how on time am I? Am I running 5 minutes behind? Am I 10 minutes early? What's going on here as far as what was planned? So again, drivers want to be able to know that information. Obviously, you're going to want to be able to see that information when you get back to the district, keeping that planned versus the actual info in line.
Hey, there's somebody asked a question here, like, why does my Transfinder, my Wayfinder app looks different than what you're showing us? Well, we do have a free version, and you could download that, of course. The free version does not have navigation. So just let you know, we do have two versions of free, and then there's one that it's not free. And this is really the part we're talking about is the not free version. So just let you know that. And I think you're going to probably get to it, everyone. And we've got tons of questions like, well, can I just download a route? Can I download this onto this device and then go out driving? Well, it's intended for you to drive with a cell connection or maybe use a hotspot on the bus. So it's not really designed to download things and then drive it. So it's supposed to be live. And again, we could talk to you about that if you're interested on getting maybe a device, because we also could now provide you devices. We're now reselling Zonar full stack solution. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying devices. It's like maybe I'll get my own, get it from other places. There's several places you could buy things. but there's a lot of things you should be considering. Please keep us in mind. Bring us to the table when you're thinking about this kind of stuff. All right. So good.
Perfect. Before I jump into the next screen, I want to talk about attendance a little bit. Again, I keep talking about how our goal is to have as little interaction for drivers as possible. So as a driver is driving, you can see he's approaching stop number 2 here. What he's going to see is the attendance screen for being able to keep track of attendance is going to open up automatically. So nothing he needs to interact with, touch the screen, tap the screen. As he approaches, it's going to use his location to open that up. And you can adjust that, right? So there's some trips I see in really dense neighborhoods. They got stops every few houses. You might want a really small area where the attendance screen opens just as you pull up. Maybe you're out in a rural area and kids are sometimes at the stop, sometimes a little off. Maybe you need a bigger area. You can manage all that within the settings here. But what happens is as you approach that stop, you automatically get into your attendance screen here. Again.
Very good. I want to add this right here, by the way. And but one of the questions is this only for Plus? No, it's for Pro and Plus. So it's for both products. This is one of the feedback is that obviously we do a lot. I mean, obviously you do a lot on planning these routes, everything, even the way you approach this stop. And one of the feedback from Rick's team, and by the way, they're amazing how much they're testing. I was there last month just to see how they're doing, and I was just amazed on how they're not only they really testing our product and giving us feedback, but the driver's actually driving a real bus considering everything else too. Like, wow, how are you doing this? So I was just trying to pay attention to what the app is doing. But the driver, she was like on top of things. She even pulled into a school to do a whole simulation, so doing the whole thing while they're about to dismiss kids. Like, oh my gosh, she's like barely just fitting in there, like 2 inches from hitting the other buses. They're all looking at us like, what are you doing? Why is there a bus coming into this loop here? But wow, I mean, the test and the feedback. And one of the things we realized that definitely we got some great things. Our system recommends, what was the plan, but maybe it was a little bit too strict. So you notice there's a button called Service Now, which means, hey, I want to service this stop right now. I know I'm coming the wrong way, but guess what? I can't go this way. I'll talk to the routers when I get back to the office, but I want to click Service Now. So that's actually a feedback that just came back for less than a month ago, and we added that functionality because it made sense. And of course they're trying to explain to me like why that's important. It's like, wait a minute, but you're approaching it the wrong way. I hear you, but look at this neighborhood. Kids could cross the street. It's okay. We gotta let the driver say Service Now. They can't go around a half a mile to come back the way we planned it. It's like, all right, good point. So just something like that. This is really the feedback and really the partnership. It's the partnership that we've built with our clients, especially with Goose Creek, and how they're really the feedback and going back and forth. It's just making this product even better. So I got to bring this up here. All right, cool.
I think that helps a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, Tony mentioned the Service Now, again, empowering the driver to be able to make those changes on the fly, because that's what we know, right? Drivers are going to be the ones making those decisions. They're the ones out there. But from the screen, a lot that we're able to control too. So you're going to be able to keep track of your students getting on board. Talk about it here in a second, but maybe they're tapping the students in as they get in, get off. Or maybe you're using a card reader there to be able to swipe that info in. If the driver needs to, we can hit that skip stop. Again, all that information coming back to our transportation department. And that's so huge, right? To be able to have that platform where you're getting this information, not on a weekly or nightly push, but really, as a driver's leaving a stop, transportation's going to know what students got on board, what stops did we have to skip. And I think of use cases here for things like contact tracing. If you have a vehicle incident, things like that, you need to know who's on the bus and who's not on the bus there. So that's why attendance is such an important piece of this application.
And remember, the attendance is actually two-level, right? You talked about the RFID cards, and Rick obviously wants to use these dual purpose cards, really wants to do different things. So cards are really nice. He knows it. He'll tell you firsthand they're very expensive. We call it the fat finger approach, which means you could just tap on the kids and you can take attendance that way if you have to go that way. You could always start with that model and then add on the readers. Remember, the readers are, they're not that expensive, but it's the replacement of those cards. Kids lose them. Those are all things you got to think about. Now, who's going to print those? Are we adding that to the transportation department? Is it the registrar office? So again, we're going to work with you to figure out what's the best practice to pull this off. And there's a rollout plan, and I don't believe that you just turn the switch and everything just happens. You should create a workflow. You should create a timeline that makes sense for you. Do we want you to get everything all at once? We would love that, but that's not even practical. So let's make sure we create a success plan that works for both of us, of course. So
Absolutely,
I got some
right?
more questions. I got some more
for it.
questions here. If a driver skips a stop or deviates from the bus route, how is a dispatcher notified? That's a good question. Clearly, the dispatcher has that information. They could see that information that they went off, but are they notified at that moment? There's going to be a little lag, but these are the kind of feedback we want to hear. What do you want the dispatcher to be notified? And what kind of message do you want? So these are things that, as you guys play with this product, we'd love to hear from you. What does that mean? Is attendance available for the drop-off trips? Definitely. I love that question. You notice there's a select all, add student, and you also could skip. Select all means if you're picking up kids at the school, you could click select all, and all the kids were planned to be picked up, they're all selected, which means they're all like, as if you tapped on all 50 of them. Or remember, with a card you can, but it's going to happen. There's going to be a kid that forgets a card. What do you do? Sorry, Billy, you forgot your card. I know you've been riding the bus for the past 4 months. You're walking to school. No way. I know you guys. We're in the service industry. Come on, Billy. It means the driver's going to have to manually tap on Billy's picture based on that stop. So a lot going on right there. So you'll be able to do so much with attendance, and it's morning, afternoon, midday, transfers. There was a question about field trips. Field trips right now do not have students assignment, but you'll see we are adding a lot of functionality on the plus side. So a lot going on with this product, and I feel like the questions are coming. So keep going, Zach.
Before we move off, you and I talked about this the other day too, Tony, but not only are you tracking AM and PM trips, you're tracking getting on the bus and getting off the bus, right? You want to make sure a driver's notified if Jimmy got on the bus, but now kids are getting off the bus and he's not swiping off, or you're not topping him off, right? You want to know if somebody fell asleep on the back of the bus, things like that too. So
That's
AM,
very good.
PM,
That's very
on and
good.
off.
That's very good, Zach. And that's really a lot of feedback we've gotten. And then we know about this, that kids do get somehow, it happens. Kid gets, left on a bus. Maybe they fell asleep. It happens. But if you're using our product and you're using the attendance piece of it, and again, it's the navigation part and attendance. Remember, we do both. If somehow the kid did not tap off or you just swiped off, guess what? The driver is going to go, you can't click finish. You can't finish this trip because there's somebody left here. Again, maybe it was incorrectly added to the stop or in the beginning. It could be a lot of different things, but the system's going to say, hey, someone's left. Someone's still here. What are you doing? So those are all things that we know what keeps us all up at night. Like, we forget a kid in the bus, and it happens a lot of time here in Northeast where it gets cold. The last thing we want is a kid to be left at. And it happens, those are the nightmares we've heard about it, and it still happens. And we want to make sure we build products that tries to minimize those nightmares. So that's a good one right there.
Yeah. So we've talked quite a bit already about RFIDs, the benefits and challenges, but obviously, again, as little as drivers need to interface with this device, but still capture all that information, give you all that functionality, really big benefit there potentially of being able to keep track of that and not rely on drivers needing to do that work. I had a video here that I want to show off. So we've talked a lot about mapping and how important it is. Obviously, as your drivers are out on the road, you're going to have those scenarios come up. Let me make sure I mute it so it's not yelling in my ear or anything. You're going to have those situations come up, right, where a driver deviates off course, right? You've got your planned course. Maybe they make a wrong turn. Again, our software is going to be able to reroute them, but it's going to reroute them intelligently, right? We don't want to take your entire trip that you've built. The order and the sequence of the stops is important to you. That's why you designed it that way. It doesn't make sense if we reroute and we reconfigure the sequence of your stops, right? So we got to make sure that's being implemented. We also have to make sure things like approach points are being implemented, right? If a stop was set up and you're approaching it from the right-hand side, there's a reason you set it up for a right-hand pickup. It doesn't work if we flip around and now we're approaching from the other side and you have a kindergarten student crossing a busy street to get on the bus. So those things have to be maintained as we're doing things like rerouting. And of course, we've talked about it a bunch, but this is your map. So if we're rerouting, We're not sending a bus down the road that you've said this is a road buses can't get down. We're not using a generic map. This is things that you've built, you've designed. Rick talked us through how he had to custom build out all of his roads that he knows for new districts, for his bus loops. All that information, all that work you've done is getting implemented here at this level too.
Cool. While this thing is doing right here, remember it is the planned, the plan was a solid blue, and obviously the dotted blue is the, when someone goes off path, it's saying, hey, this has been rerouted. So, it is rerouted, which means it's taken you away from the planned. And yes, should we send a notification to the dispatcher at this point? Should we send dock some pay? Maybe we take, every time we take a wrong turn, we dock pay. I mean, these are all things you could decide. I don't know if you're going to do that, but sometimes you can't avoid it. Taking a wrong turn, it's not because they took a wrong turn. It was actually the correct thing to do at that moment. But one of the question is, because someone heard me talk about Zonar. Is Zonar the only company you work with? Again, you could bring your own device. It could be any device you want. The reason why I brought up Zonar is the company that currently we're working that has fully integrated with their reader, with their tablets, the whole thing. So if you want it all in one solution, that's one of the companies that we recommend to get, because they have it all that solution will work. You could bring your own device. We obviously have to talk about how you're going to use the scanners and all that, but it doesn't have to be just Zonar. And we are working with other companies to potentially create a package like we did with Zonar, and just stay tuned for more of that information. All right.
Yep.
But obviously we got about 15-minute. I just want to give you a 15 minutes heads up. I'll try not to answer some of the questions unless it's like, wow, we got to answer that right now. So,
well, we talked quite a bit about rerouting intelligently, why that's so important. Again, it's all part of that big picture of why we want to offer an all-in-one solution, so that when you're out on the road, you're implementing all that work that you've done on the routing level. Again, it's about safety, accuracy, putting all of that into place there. So finally, when you get to the end, safely, accurately, your trip finishes for you here. And this is where you're going to get a summary of your information. Again, you can see it's comparing things like student counts, distance, time, the plan versus what actually happened on the road. And again, all this information is communicating back and forth. So your transportation department is getting this information as well, so they can look at those KPIs, do those comparisons, see why their bus shows up late to school every day. So this is what your driver is going to see when it wraps up. But again, all that information going back to transportation, so they have it too. Right, completing your trip, you're going to have that accurate, up-to-date attendance records. You're going to be able to substitute those resources on the fly. You're going to keep students, drivers safe with all the reliable navigation info. That's what you get when you're at the end of the summary here. That's really what we had to cover for navigation. Tony, I'll let you check in, but there's a few other pieces we had on route building as well.
There are, and obviously the route builder, I love that part because it really wraps the whole thing. This is one of the things that Rick Walterscheid really introduced me with a company several years ago. I think they were from, where were they located? Alvin? Where were they? No, south from Austin. I forgot where they were located. Where the mall here, right?
Yeah, they were in Austin. Yeah.
Right, they were in Austin, and there was a company he introduced me to that they had like this little pager thing that you pressed a button. It was called Route Builder, and it was like so cool. I think it was about 12, 13 years ago. He calls me up like, you gotta check this out. It's like, cool. They're right here. You gotta look at it. It's like, all right. So, and I was fascinated. So we started this technology again 12 years ago. There was no feedback, which is like, it looked like some of you guys, I don't know if you remember what a pager would look like, but we loved that technology. And so many people, it was cool. It was early on. Some of you guys build your routes with those things. Clearly some little frustration because you really couldn't make any changes. Very hard to know what it just did. Did you forget the button? Did you forget to press the button? Or did you forget to charge the thing? There was just so much, a lot different than having, a device that actually you could see things. You could see the map. What a big difference. So it's something that we thought, so the free version, and I'm talking about the free version of Wayfinder, yeah, there is a cost to get the navigation and attendance is all in one. But the free version, you could actually build your routes using this product, and you could do the schedule, the substitution. All that's part of the free version. So if you want to just be able to just have the drivers log in and say, especially if you have our parent app, which is called Stopfinder, that's the product that you're going to notify parents. It's important that if you don't can't do it in your back office, the vehicle or the driver substitution, well, let the driver do it on a free version of Wayfinder. Then there's an interface. They see what their schedule is. They don't see it, their map. They can't navigate it because that's not the free version, but all of that functionality is there. And obviously, they're building the trips. In other words, we used to have a saying about 12 years ago as your drivers are driving, your routes come alive. And so we've incorporated this, and it's kind of cool. So yeah, I think there's really, it's simple. Anyone could download this version, and you could build your routes, and then you could bring them into either Routefinder Pro or into Plus. So it's very cool. Very
Tony,
cool
if I might, one of the real things, and again, I'm not a paid, I'm just a director, right? I'm just a bus guy. One of the hardest things for a new department or any existing department going from one routing software program to another routing software program, or starting up fresh from a routing software program at any level, whether that's a school with 400 kids or a school like ours with 26,000, is how do you quickly get your routes into the computer? Right. Because there is a learning curve to any routing software program there is. So how do you get it from paper to inside the computer? And that's, going back, you said 15 years. What I absolutely love about this is you can take any size district, and as long as the driver knows where the heck they're going, you put this device in their hand and you implement and you bring it in, and you find, there's different ways to mark a stop. I mean, there's just, it really is probably the most carefree way to do it in starting up, because information is they will say trash in, trash out. Well, you can't put trash into a routing system and expect it to go anywhere. And that's the hardest thing, starting up from fresh or even changing over, that there is to do, is to make sure you're not putting trash in. Well, if it's out on the road and it's rubber on the road and you need to stop at that intersection, that's pretty powerful information. It's no longer trash in, trash out. Right. And so that goes back to what you were talking about. This is good. This is part of that game changer again. It just,
that's right.
Keep going back to that. This is an industry changing platform that we're looking at here.
And remember, it's everything you're saying, like, again, like 15 years ago in Kerrville, I remember it's got to be all, I don't know if you use the word all in one. And again, the sun was coming up. I don't think there's not too many times I can remember in my life to actually pull truly an all-nighter. I did it, obviously, and as a software engineer, I spend a lot of nights right to, into the morning, just keep coding. But this was all conversation, which is actually, it drains your brain.
People like Zach and you and your team, y'all are coders, you're programmers, you understand all the bits and the terabytes and all the fancy words that you use. Most people that run transportation departments are like me. They're redneck, backwoods country, not really backwoods country, but just simple folk. And we didn't grow up with all this technology. So don't ask me to program your VCR, but I can run this.
No, but the way you were saying it, it's like, oh man, you're right. And really, at this point, no one's talking about the word all in one. You just want, I have just too many components, and you're just rattling off everything. You're saying, I got to get this thing, and I got to buy this product. And then, of course, if something's not working, I call 3 companies. They're all doing, well, it's his fault, not my fault. It's like, oh, you said this 15 years ago. It's like, oh, I know. It's, it's like one throat to choke. And obviously, we like to really rebrand that to be one back to Pat. Because that's what I like that, right? It's more positive, so cool. So yeah, I just want to just give some shout out to you on really the route builder, and I know this is really takes us back a while ago, but this was a game changer that many years ago, and you could build your routes as you're driving, and then just bring those in. You could bring them right into either Routefinder Pro or to Plus. So that's some cool things. And I think the tracking, some people say, could I just use this app as a GPS device? You could. And I just, we're back and forth, and we really made that official. It's been unofficial. I mean, I'm not recommending that this app becomes your GPS device there, because GPS devices shouldn't just be where have I been, where was I 2 weeks ago. You want a lot more than that. You want to know your diagnostic. You want to know if the door would open. You want to know so much more. So now these devices out there just pull so much more than just where is this bus been the past 2 days. So I just want to make sure you guys know that. Let's talk about a GPS device that gets, somehow it's in your dash on away from the driver's car, accidentally unhook them, but maybe into your engine diagnostic, your all that stuff. It's there. That technology exists right now. If you're gonna make an investment, let's talk about that, of course. So, anything else we got?
I think that was a good overview of Rail Builder. I had a few shots just so we could see what that looks like, but you and Rick, I think, really explained the use case and what you're doing, right? But again, it is a really simple interface. A driver's out there on the road, it's tracking their GPS, dropping those GPS breadcrumbs as they drive. Big icon here with our map pin to be able to drop stops. And again, fully from the road, you have drivers who really, we talk about a lot, how much of an expert they can be on these subjects. So letting them drive the route, pin the pins for where the bus stops at exact locations again here. And if they need to make changes or tweak them as they go, they can make those changes, right? Maybe they missed a stop, maybe they need to add a little bit of information. They can do all of that. And then what that's doing from there is pushing back into your routing software.
That's right. There's another question right here about if they're, again, we're talking about this BYOD, bring your own device, and obviously it could just be that you buy them or your drivers have them. Can they change the routes? They could do whatever you let them do. I mean, what does change route means for today? They're not changing it permanently, but they could say today they're going to skip. So it doesn't matter what device, whether it's something that you bought for them or they're using their products. Remember, they're driving, so they're going to be logged in. You're going to know exactly. And I think someone asked, one of the questions is, are they going to be users in the system? Yes. So you go in, you give them rights to schools, just like you can. I know some of you guys have other products that are across your district. Either you have LE or Viewfinder, those kind of products. You do the same thing too. You give them the rights, really under security. So these are going to be username and password. There's going to be a client ID that you guys would use. All that stuff is what you're already using, and it's consistent. So I think those are things. Again, if please reach out to us if there's a timing. One question is about traffic conditions. The traffic is something that we're actually now releasing in Plus. That's an option. So I think that's a good thing. Stay tuned for traffic information. In other words, as the driver is driving, do we want traffic to dictate how to drive? Maybe you have to take that turn. It's coming. I think that some of that information is going to be available, but the overlay of traffic is an option for Plus users. Again, remember we have 2 products, Pro and Plus. It gives me an opportunity to talk about Pro and Plus. About 30% now, over a year. And remember, we just had like last month, a couple of weeks ago, we had our big birthday bash, and I feel like I'm still recovering from that big birthday bash, right? But what's that? There's confetti still up on the chandelier. I see it, right, on our pendant lights here. Pendant lights. That's right. Thanks, John, for bringing that up. I wonder if that's like a hazard fire, hazard or not. We probably should get rid of that stuff right there. But the whole thing about 30% in a little bit over a year, 30% of our clients went from Pro to Plus, which is we didn't expect it to go at that pace. Very fast for your side and our side. We're excited. Obviously, we know the pressure. A lot of you is going to be the first time they're going to open up school with this new product. So we're here to support you. And obviously, please, let's get started. Let's make sure we get our plans in hand. Let's not wait 2 weeks before school starts. And Rick, that works, right? What happens most in the industry, they don't use their products until like about a month before school opens. And that's when it all hits the fan. And obviously we're here to prepare you, but we also love to know if we could maybe get started a little earlier than a couple of weeks before school starts. So remind everyone that, okay? Do we miss any questions, Rick DeRico? Anything here? I'm trying to monitor stuff. Cell connection, yes. So it has to be cell connection. What happens in dead areas? Very good. Wayfinder will eventually catch up, so we know the plan. If it does go off plan, we know that because those are the maps are on the device, so we're going to be in good shape. Maybe the visual is not going to be right there. Obviously, if you're picking up the kids that are supposed to be planned, all works great. And yes, Wayfinder does catch up. Actually, it keeps up because GPS does not need cell connection. But if you have an exception, you want to add a kid doesn't belong here, yeah, then it doesn't know how to read your database live. So there are a couple things that's going to behave weird if you lose cell connection. And it's okay. We've done tons of experimenting and testing. We intentionally turn off the cell and we drive. It works fine. I just don't recommend that you start the day, you download it, which is no download, you start the route and then you turn off then you have no more cell connection and you go there, you run our product for an hour. That's just not highly recommended at all. That just doesn't make any sense. So something to consider. Anything else we have for questions? Okay, we have like 1 more minute left here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
I want to say, first of all, thank you so much, Zach and Tony. I mean, that was an amazing presentation. And I want to make sure if you did not get your question answered, I think we did answer most of these, if not all of them. If you still have a question after we get done, please email us at marketing@transfinder.com and we will definitely get back to you as quickly as possible. I want to end with one quick thing. I want to ask Rick, Tony, and Zach, if you guys can give me one last takeaway before we say goodbye to everybody. I'm going to start with you, Zach, put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you, Rick, and then Tony, if you could close us out and then we'll say goodbye. But first, Zach, what's one takeaway you want to, and I want to thank our attendees, by the way, for spending time with us this afternoon. Zach, what's one thing you want to make sure people do not leave here without thinking about?
Absolutely, right? So I've talked about it a lot, but how Wayfinder plays into our entire platform and whole solution, right? Because there's so many people involved with transportation, not just your routers and dispatchers, but school districts, you've got parents, you've got drivers, and you've got to have a system that keeps everybody informed, keeps all that information up to date and kind of in one place. You're not managing 20 different systems. That's the biggest thing. Hopefully I conveyed it today.
That's a great takeaway, and you definitely did. Thanks so much, Zach. How about you, Rick? What's a takeaway you'd like your fellow transportation supervisors to take away?
I would probably say trash in, trash out. You're only as good as the information that you have. And otherwise, and we all know what it feels like on one end of the, and I've been at both ends, right? The big school, the little school, and the middle school. No one likes that phone call of not knowing where that kid is. So what I would say is no matter what platform you're using, whether it's Pro, whether it's Plus, whether it's Wayfinder, whether it's Stopfinder, use every tool because you won't really feel the power of what you have in your hands until you actually use it. And the analogy I use is that yes, I could buy a semi to go to the grocery store. Probably not going to recognize the power of that semi till I hook it to the groceries that are delivered to the grocery store. So that's what I would say about this program. It's a semi. It is a powerhouse if you use it the correct way. If you're interested in just using a little portion of it, you're never going to feel the power of it. And I mean everything from, there's a question about drivers and schedules. In our system, we have every driver, every monitor, every mechanic, every piece of it. They all talk. We use Service Finder. Every part that comes into the building for my buses, all 300 plus of them, every part of it goes into the system. It communicates with my fuel system. We bring in the mileage. We do all of those things through integration. We talk to the student information system nightly and add students instantaneously so that we can add them to the route the very next morning. We have reminders of when our drivers need to go get set up and get their physicals and all of those things. And no matter the size of district, no matter the complexities that you have, if you use the tools that you have available to you, the powerhouses, it gives you the time to do those what if scenarios. If you're so busy trying to figure out where a driver's supposed to be, you can't look far enough ahead to figure out where you want them to go when you add that next school or when that road is taken away from you. Use the program, whatever program you choose. I like Transfinder, but whatever it is, put the information where it is and use it like it was built. If you don't like the way it's built, work to get that built better. And that's what I like about Transfinder. They're not in, I'm from Texas. That's a long ass ways away from New York. But I can tell you when they answer the phone or I answer the phone, it feels like they're next door because they're so intimately aware of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So that's my takeaway. Again, I'm a nobody, but I'm going to tell you, use the tools that you have available.
That's great. And you're not a nobody, but I'm not going to sing the song that says that you're not a nobody. Tony, I'm gonna turn it over to you, close us out. And I want to remind everybody, by the way, that if you love this presentation and you wish that some decision maker in your district had access to it, it will be on our YouTube channel as well as transfinder.com. So we will make that available to you. But Tony, final takeaways?
I'm gonna answer one last question. I want to make sure the free version of Wayfinder. Yes, you can create. Route Builder is part of the free, which you could then download to either Pro or Plus. Again, we all use the word Transfinder, because does it work in Transfinder? Well, Transfinder is a company, which is okay. We do it internally here. We call it. They use Transfinder, which really it's either Routefinder Pro or Routefinder Plus, but it's okay. I think I understand what you meant. So just to let you know that my only takeaway that I have is that after 15 years of really having tons of conversations, we are finally, and really started last year in 2020, we are the all-in-one company, which means we now provide everything. That's really the biggest takeaway. I know the frustration you guys all had of having multiple pieces and bits exchanging data. We're finally could say we're the all-in-one transportation solution for you guys now. So I'm very proud of that.
Super.
So,
well, thank you. I want to thank all of our attendees. I want to again thank Rick for taking time out. Zach, awesome job, and Tony as well. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Peace, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.